The first time I met Lydia, I was so young and uncontaminated by the world that I didn't even know I was participating in a scientific experiment. I was brought into a strange, blank white room. Everyone's shoes squeaked on the hard, shiny floor, and the high-frequency buzzing of fluorescent lights overhead made me jittery and discombobulated. The three of us, I, Bruno, my idiot brother Cookie, and little Celeste, were let out of the cage in which they had conveyed us to this alien room, to allow us a little time to acclimate ourselves to these surroundings at our leisure, to accustom our eyes to the stinging brightness, to meet the scientists. That's when I met Lydia. She bent to the floor and held her arms open for me, and I ran to her and climbed into them, and for the rest of the day that's where I stayed, cradled in her arms, breathing her amazing scent that I even then, in some way, must have found erotic, except when she was too busy with her work, or when they ripped us apart so that they could run their moronic experiments on me. I suppose I shouldn't say moronic, because that experiment was what marked me as different right from the beginning. Of course, I had no idea what was going on at the time. I had not yet acquired language, so I couldn't have articulated my thoughts. That, by the way, is the ironic thing about acquiring language relatively late in life. Words don't exist to adequately describe what it's like when that tempest of wordless thoughts whirling around in your head suddenly snaps to definition. That great hop from the pre-linguistic to the linguistic is squarely in the realm of the ineffable. As far as I knew, all that was going on was this. I was taken into a small, empty white room with a long, rectangular reflective panel embedded in one wall. I now realize this was a one-way mirror, behind which another scientist was probably watching me like a voyeur with an eye to the keyhole. The scientist who had conducted me into this room was not the woman who I would later come to know as Lydia. Was that you, watching me from behind the mirror, Lydia? But some droll old fat bearded sot who held no especial interest for me. There was a transparent plastic box on the floor. The scientist produced from the pocket of his white coat, with the excessively theatrical flourish of an amateur magician, a peach. A peach, Gwen. He was my serpent, and I was his Eve. There we were, me in my prelapsarian nudity, and he in his demonic white coat, tempting me with fruit coveted but prohibited. The only difference was environmental. We'd swapped sexy Edenic lushness for the sterile, whitewashed walls of science. Also, that particular fruit is semiotically associated with the female pudenda, isn't it? Isn't that way Cezanne painted them? Still life with peaches? Why, that's just a quivering bowl full of vulva sweating on the breakfast table, waiting for you to eat them up. But the peach in question. So the scientist does, he takes a juicy, piggish bite out of it and starts making yummy yum yum noises. Rubbing his belly, trying to goad my jealousy. And as I recall, it worked. I was a simpler creature then. I remember wanting that peach at that moment more than anything. Hell, I would have sold my soul for a peach. And in a way I did, didn't I? I remember loathing that smug old fat imperious blob for the way he lorded the fruit over me. He took his bite, breaking the skin, releasing into the room the ambrosial aroma of that sticky, wet, fleshy treat, and then he, bastard, pushed me out of the way when I reached for it. Then, turning to the box, transparent plastic box on the floor, remember? He operated some sort of device which made the lid spring open, placed the peach inside the lid, and shut the lid in the box and shut the lid. I was watching his actions with curiosity and a motley of deadly sins, greed, envy, gluttony, lust. Then, the demonstration. The box opening mechanism consisted of a button and a lever. He pressed the button, then he rapped on the lid of the box 3 times with his knuckles like this. Then he flipped the lever, and the lid of the box popped open. He reached in and, again, moving his arms in such a grossly histrionic manner, it was as if he wanted the people in the nosebleed seats to see what he was doing and making a face like, "Look, Bruno, what do we have here?" He extracted the peach. Again, I reached for it. Again, he pushed me away. Then he put the peach back in the box, promptly left the room, and pulled the door shut behind him. Bruno was alone. Alone with the box, with the peach clearly visible but locked away inside, forbidden to Bruno. I looked at it a moment. I pressed the button, knocked thrice on the lid, flipped the lever, opened the box, and removed the peach. Did I dare to eat a peach? Indeed I did. In this way, I fell from my state of innocence.